What's up, y'all? So I want to make a video today talking about social acceptance mixed race people face in this world that sees race so much. I just saw a video on why the black community is now such why they're so against Drake right now. And a lot of it said is because he's wealthy, because he can get basically with any woman he wants to be with. And the fact that white people accept him to a certain degree, like they accept him in their spaces to a certain degree. So I just want to discuss this as me being like light skinned and mixed race as well. I want to discuss this because I've had somewhat of a similar experience, So okay, let me get into it. So growing up, I went to black schools, right? I went to black private Catholic schools, and I was always bullied throughout school, but I especially wasn't accepted in black Catholic schools for whatever reason. Sometimes I think maybe it could have something to do but because I was light skinned or mixed race. But also when I had lost weight during school, I really felt like it was like a lot of lookism problems going on in my middle school and elementary days. When I had lost weight, that's when everybody started liking me in my middle school days, and they were all black. So that was like at the very end of like 8th grade. I had lost a bunch of weight, and everybody just started liking me, like finally showing me some type of like acceptance, So I think it really wasn't about like race or anything. It was just the fact that I was an overweight kid, in middle school or elementary, and I was just accepted somewhat when I just, became somewhat attractive to everybody at that age and that time, But I know for a fact if I would have went to like a Hispanic school in Miami or in South Florida, I would have had some friends, but I probably would have had friends. Yeah, they probably wouldn't have been so much. I probably wouldn't have been so much of a target, but still, nonetheless, I don't really feel like it came down to skin color. I feel it played somewhat of a little role, but not all the way, because I was accepted at the end of 8th grade when I had lost a bunch of weight and was like attractive to everybody somewhat, And then I got to high school. I was pretty thin in high school, so I was skinny all throughout high school. And this is the first time I was really around Hispanics, white Hispanics. So I experienced somewhat of some acceptance to a certain degree, and I'm also speaking as a mixed race person, a light skinned mixed race person. I will never know the experiences of a darker skinned person, I know black people go through things where they're discriminated against for being darker, or called these off the wall names or comments are made towards them and these microaggressions. I've never experienced that, so I wouldn't know, personally, just wouldn't know. Sorry, I'm getting my words mixed up. I've never walked through life knowing this type of stuff. I know it exists. I've been around it. I've heard the comments people have made, but I've never had I've never experienced it like directed towards me. So I was in high school surrounded by white people in high school, white Hispanics, mainly Cuban, other nationalities mixed in. I experienced a lot of acceptance to some degree. I'm gonna say the truth. I experienced a lot of acceptance, and this was the first time I was really around white people like that in school. It was like high school. I was also rejected too because I was just bullied for. It was always something they was bullying about in school, But I was accepted to some degree. And I had a lot of white friends, they weren't real friends, they were fake, but I had somewhat of a lot of white Hispanic friends, and what I noticed throughout high school is none of the black kids really bothered with me like that. Like I would have to go out of my way to like really hang out with black kids in my high school. They would never just try to befriend me like off the bat, and it's been like this throughout my whole life. I know so much about black culture and like the mannerisms and the ways, and even my voice. A lot of people like tell me I sound like a black man when I talk. Like I know so much of black culture because of my family, But other than that, I've never really had black friends like that. I had one, but he was light skinned like me, you know. All of my friends were just fake, you know, because I'm from South Florida, and like it's really hard to find genuine connections here. All of my friends was fake, so all of my high school friends was fake, but I was accepted somewhat, you know. It's like I was accepted a lot, you know, because I remember like going to parties with, you know, other Hispanic kids. But at the time, I didn't know I was Hispanic. I just thought I was black, you know. I remember going to parties with other kids, you know, and like just really feeling accepted overall, you know. And at some parties, they would have like black Latinos there, Latinos darker than me, you know. But I guess they were accepted because that's the culture they came from, you know. And I was accepted to a certain degree because I looked Hispanic somewhat, you know. I looked Hispanic, like I fit this stereotype of a Latin person, you know. So oftentimes, like I would be in school, you know. I had nothing but Latin friends all throughout high school. I don't remember having any black friends in high school. Let me just keep it real. And like I went to a lot of parties. I was constantly eating with like I was constantly like sitting and lunch eating with like different white kids, you know, and lunch, all throughout high school. It was never a problem, you know. And this is what social acceptance comes down to. Like in high school, I felt rejected, 50% rejected, 50% accepted, maybe for the way I looked or whatever, my personality somewhat, you know. I was still bullied, you know, but I did end up having quite a good number of fake friends, you know, and friends in general, you know, and I did feel accepted somewhat, you know, highly accepted somewhat. But it was always still like tricky, like navigating things, you know, because I remember at one point when I was like over one of my fake friends' houses, we was like hanging out, and then they was like started making a bunch of black jokes, you know, and it really rubbed me the wrong way, you know, and I just didn't like it at the time. But you know, I feel like I was accepted a lot in school. I do feel like that, but I was also rejected a lot for stupid shit, you know. And I actually got told I didn't look black a lot of the times in school. I got told that a lot, like not a lot, but quite a few times in high school by the white kids. They were like, you know, you don't even look black, and I was like, really? Are you really telling the truth? Are you really seeing me? Because I feel like I look like a mixed race person, you know. But there was like a lot of the times they would end up telling me you don't look black, and not a lot, but a few times, and sometimes that would just leave me like so confused. Because I remember at one point I was so confused from all these perceptions of me. I would just stare in the mirror for like 10 minutes a day sometimes and just be like, what the fuck are these people seeing, you know, and stuff like that, you know. Also it was a couple of instances of racism that happened too at this school, you know, especially when these people had seen my family as well, you know. But I don't even want to get into that. I don't like recalling it, but it was a couple instances of racism. A lot of the times the racism wasn't directed at me. It was directed towards the black students, you know, at the school, and whatever the staff or whatever, which is so fucked up, you know. I really didn't like that. And the staff was low-key racist too, but they just played it off, you know. But I felt like overall, I was just accepted, you know, off the bat, you know. And a lot of the times at this school, like the kids would just assume I was like them, you know. A lot of the times they would be like, oh, are you Latin? Are you Hispanic? Are you Mexican? Are you Cuban? They would ask me that all the time. Not all the time, but they would ask me that quite a few times. And I'd just be like, no, I'm black, you know. Because at the time I didn't know about my heritage, you know, my mixture, you know, and because I am adopted, you know. And I just feel like a lot of the times in my life with black people, it's just like I feel like I have no clue, you know. it's just I have had a very unique and complex experience. I feel like a lot of the times with black men, they just don't want to be friends. They want nothing to do with me. They just like, it's like that. Like what? Like they don't want to be friends. They want nothing to do with me. So like a majority of my friends have been like Latin men and light skinned men like myself. It's sad how much colorism plays into this world. It's really sad because I know a lot of mixed people just want to be accepted, and want to just have friends regardless of color. But people are so tribalistic, so like, oh, if you don't fit into our group, like we don't want to hang out with you. Like it's that's really the way the world is right now. That's the way it has always been. And I feel like a lot of the times, like, so I would just have a bunch of Hispanic friends, at the end of the day, like all my friends would be Latin or light skinned, and I just have nothing but fake friends, but, and one-sided friendships, but I at least had some situations where I had experience and we're trying to make a connection, get what I'm saying? But I just feel like with black people, it's just no effort, it's no initiative, it's no nothing. And I'm just like left like to the wayside, I'm just left alone, But when it comes to dating, it's kind of different too. I'm just talking about social acceptance for mixed race people, When it comes to dating, it's like it's been a unique, I'm not gonna dive into it, but it's been a complex experience, And I feel like socially I am somewhat accepted by the majority. But I'm just talking about white people in the Latino sense, I'm not talking about white Americans, because I haven't really been around like white Americans like that. It was a quite a few number at my school, but I mean, like, I'm talking about like white Hispanics, It was some at my school, but, and I didn't really go to a school like that where there was a lot of white Americans. It was a school I wanted to go to in Broward that was that had a good number of white people, white Americans, and like mixed with Hispanics. But I didn't end up going. I'm glad I didn't go. But like, I feel like somewhere I am like, so this social acceptance thing, I feel like by white people I'm accepted like 60%, and by black people like 30%. That's really how it feels a lot of the times. I really struggle with making black friends. I'm just keeping it real and being 100. I struggle with making black friends and darker skinned black friends. It's always been a struggle for me throughout my life. And for no particular reason, I was just always myself, and like black people just never wanted to be friends, So, it's always stuff like that, It's a lot of instances of that, And I feel like I am accepted a lot more by Latinos and like white people. That's just how I feel, But everything else has been like has been a unique and complex experience. I know I keep saying that, but it's the truth, And at one point in school, like romance wise, I had kissed a Cuban girl, At one point, I ended up kissing a white Cuban girl, and like, and she had a boyfriend at the time. She could have easily like reported me, but she didn't do anything, something like that. And I know I kissed her without consent. I know, but like, I just like we flirted heavily. Like we was always flirting throughout school, and I always wanted to date her, So I just took my chance, But I just feel like it's a lot with it's quite a unique experience mixed race people go through with social acceptance, And people may feel like, well, white people or black people, it's mixed people that feel more accepted with black people, And it's mixed people that feel more accepted amongst the white Hispanics and white people, And I just feel like I'm somewhere in the medium, the median, the middle, I just feel somewhat there, But yeah, that's just how it's been for me. I just wanted to say this. Everybody has a unique experience. All mixed race people don't have the same experience, and I feel like this has just been my experience, I know in the future I'm probably gonna have just like maybe a group of all Hispanic men friends, because the way it's going now is just I'm never gonna make black friends the way it's going now, even though I've tried my whole life. It was one guy in my gym who was kind of interested in being friends, but like he was Haitian, but I just feel like in general it's just been like a lack of initiative, a lack of reciprocation. That's just been my experience, but I know it's different for every other mixed race person. Just wanted to make this video. Take care, y'all.